This is Auntie Up, Indigenous women talking about important shit.
Bojo, Ozawa Benisiquain Indigenous, Anemkiwa Jun Indonji, Megazi Nododem. Welcome to Auntie Up. I'm Jolene Banning, and I'm coming to you live from Fort William First Nation on the northern shores of Gitchagumi, also known as Lake Superior. I am so happy to be your host today of Auntie Up and to be co-hosting this episode today because we have two amazing, beautiful, talented Kwe, one that I've met personally and so honored to have been invited to attend her workshop as she was putting it on. And the other one saved my grandson from some horrible, painful, itchy eczema when he was just a baby. And we come from the same territory. But before we tell you who our special guests are, I want to throw it to my kick-ass partner in hosting, Kim Wheeler.
I'm Miigwech Jolene. I'm Kim Wheeler, Anishinaabe and Mohawk, living in Treaty 1 territory. I'm registered at Seguin First Nation, but my maternal line is from Sandy Bay First Nation, and my paternal bloodline comes from Six Nations. At least that's what I've been told, and that's what I believe. As a 60 Scoop survivor, being a journalist has really afforded me a safe space to ask questions and understand the culture and our history. And I've known one of our guests since she was a journalist. In fact, it's how we met. Patrice Mousseau is the owner and creator of Satya Organic Skincare, a salve she created when her baby daughter had eczema and she didn't want to use steroids on her delicate skin. So Patrice put her journalistic skills to use to find something without steroids to help her daughter. 5 natural ingredients later, and Patrice created a USDA certified organic product to fight eczema. And now her product is in over 800 stores? 900 stores. Wow. Welcome to Auntie Up, Patrice.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. That was a brilliant intro. I'm going to have to get that from you and use it.
I think we took it off your website and tweaked it.
Oh, well, awesome. It's a good tweaking.
Jolene, do you want to introduce our other guest?
Yes, I'd love to. Sage Paul is an urban Dene South Lene woman based in Toronto. I hope I didn't butcher that.
Pretty good.
She's also a member of English River First Nation, and her work and life approach centers family, sovereignty, and resistance for balance. Sage is the executive and artistic director of Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto, which she also co-founded. She has been instrumental in establishing and leading projects for Indigenous artists working in fashion, craft, and textiles through several projects both within the Indigenous community and non-Indigenous business landscapes. Miigwech for being here, Patrice and Sage.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Auntie Up.
Me too. Sage, pre-COVID, you and your team were gearing up for Indigenous Fashion Week, and you were here in Thunder Bay for a workshop to let the artists know what to expect, the buyers, the reporters. You were lifting Indigenous designers up a lot, and they were all women. Tell me why this is important to you.
I just feel like this is a part of growing up. Growing up, I was surrounded by women who were always making craft or our fashion or our regalia, and it was just something that I grew up with. But it was so weird because I never saw myself as actually being a part of the fashion industry. And so making Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto it served just that, is that we could actually just create our own spaces. And for me, it's just important to carry on and learn what my grandmothers and aunties know. And I think it's really important. I always think about my little sister specifically. She's my little sister, and I want the best for her. I love her so much, and I feel that way about everyone else I work with. I want to be able to give that same amount of love and care in everything I do to make sure that our work continues to live as it should.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we do make a space for our women, for our, especially our Indigenous women. And Patrice, you've done similar work with Satya. You've designed your company to raise up single moms who make their own hours to get the work done. Can you explain, just maybe share why you've done that and how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I would say that I'm far more likely to hire a mom in my company than I am for somebody who has an MBA. People who have MBAs think they know everything about what they're doing. Moms just get stuff done. Everybody in the company is either a single mom or like a stay-at-home mom, or they have an elderly parent that they take care of, so they can't work in regular hours. So we allow them, of course, to be task-based. We pay them a living wage, and the amount of stuff that they are able to do and accomplish is astounding. And I think it's like a vast untapped resource, because here you have, intelligent, sometimes very educated, but always just people who, like I said, just get stuff done. And it's been amazing for the company.
That's amazing. And that makes me feel so good too as a mom, because I remember like often people would snub their nose, or there would be like an elitist attitude if you had a lot of education, and someone who only has a college diploma and all my life experience, sometimes I never felt welcomed in those circles. So I really, really am so proud that you're making work that way. And I just want to ask what it's like being an Indigenous woman operating your own business. I'm just thinking about what we face as Indigenous people in our daily lives, like racism, being thought less of, crabs in the bucket syndrome. What has that experience been like for both of you? Maybe we'll start with Patrice.
Yeah, I just wanted to carry on a little bit more about this idea of perception and what it is that we're supposed to be, or what we can and can't do based on our backgrounds. I dropped out of high school. I went back, I finished, but I never went to university. I certainly didn't go to like Ryerson or anything for journalism, and that's what I ended up doing. I was a news anchor for ABTN. I was a news anchor for News World. And and I talked to the guys at CBC and I said, I didn't have all these qualifications. And they just said, it probably makes you more interesting. And they didn't care, because I was getting the job done. So don't let anybody tell you what you can and can't do, because they don't know. I'm sorry. I forgot. I was getting on my soapbox there and I totally forgot the question.
Oh, that's okay. I was going to say, but that's why we're here on Auntie Up, right? Because we are doing what we want to do in the way we want to do it. And we're not letting anybody tell us, no, we can't. So I think the question was that Jolene asked was, as an Indigenous woman operating your own business, right? What has that experience been like for you? Knowing what we face every day as Indigenous people, what's been one of the biggest challenges?
I'm going to let Sage take this because I've already talked too much.
It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. And I think it's really important to surround yourself with people you trust and people you love, and support people who also share similar visions, and make sure communication is always there. Especially, for Indigenous Fashion Week, it's not for profit. So I feel like I have a responsibility to the community beyond just running a company, where I think people have personal control over any of the decisions that they make. But I have to remember that a lot of the decisions I'm making are serving designers who are living on reserve, or way remote communities, or based in Toronto with very little resources. Like, everyone has their own experience and their own path. And so having to be very strategic and thoughtful and careful about how decisions are made, because Native women across the country all have such different lived experiences, and how do we create an open space? And that thing you were talking about, education, I only went to college. Also, I didn't have enough OACs, grade 13, to go to university, and now I'm getting asked to speak at universities. And it's right. And so, and even the universities that turned me down. So, but it's because they only teach one way of learning and of doing. And that was the same thing for fashion industry. They taught us how to mass produce, and sew really well, but it's so different from how people are in our communities. And I just think it's so important, as a not-for-profit, that we know that we're serving a whole bunch of different kinds of people.
How does that make you feel, knowing like you didn't go to university and now you're being asked to speak when you get those requests? Because I've got them too, and I also have like a 2-year college diploma, and being asked to speak to at a university about your experience is, yeah.
Well, first off, they better pay, because I'm so sick and tired of Indigenous people asked to share their experience and knowledge for nothing. That's one thing that I'll say about speaking to universities or banks or whoever else wants to talk to it. We have to draw a line in the sand and say, if you're going to pay a consultant, you can pay me. You know, they have these huge coffers. They should be paying Indigenous people for their time. And I will also say I'm sorry, again, getting up on the soapbox. One of the things that I found being an Indigenous person, both in journalism and in business, is that you will always find people trying to make an excuse for your success. They'll always say, oh, the only reason why you succeeded is because you got a grant to do this, or because you're Native, because you're Indigenous or whatever. Like for the stupidest things, like I literally had someone in the community tell me the only reason why I got a radio show was because I was Indigenous. And I'm like, it doesn't even come through the radio. You cannot do a 2-hour talk show on the talk station in Toronto just because your skin is brown. You have to bring more to the table. Like it was so ridiculous. So either you don't succeed and it's because you're Indigenous, or you do succeed because you're Indigenous. It's just people are always trying to explain away all this hard work that you're doing.
I feel like it's so ingrained though, because I don't like, I mostly work in the Native community, so I don't hear too much of that. But like growing up, like through my whole career, I've always felt like that. I'm like, could I actually get a similar role in a non-Indigenous place? Like I impose that on myself to be like, I'm actually not good enough. And it takes a lot of like just, inner strength and like cheerleading to say, okay, no, I've worked really hard to know what I know. And I believe that I have things to offer, but it takes some time to have that, like that belief and faith in oneself, because we're told so often that we're just like, we don't even see ourselves in spaces. So how can
And you know what? And the funny thing about that too is the fact that, our ideas about community and being multifaceted and putting into, we're in relationship with the environment, with other people and all those sorts of things. This is something we do inherently and we've been doing for centuries. And this is now what other businesses are finally starting to pick up on, that in order to be successful, they have to have diverse voices. And in order to be successful, they have to consider every aspect of their business, which is who we are, what we do, just naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautifully said, because as Indigenous women, like we sort of get those microaggressions about race and about class and stuff like that. And here you two are doing it on your own. And I see a lot of sustainability in your work, like using natural products like hides and furs and working in your community. And Patrice, you're sourcing the packaging of your products to be sustainable. So like, how do your traditions contribute to how you design clothing and teach others to design, I mean?
When I was little, I was always told to like listen to our elders, don't waste anything. One, just because those were values, but also we didn't have a lot of money. So it's like, if you don't eat all your food, it's going to be gone, but also just don't waste anything. Use everything you have. Like I was just raised to be super resourceful. And I think that's pretty common in our communities. I feel like that's a Native experience to have. I think it's just about those values that we have to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Patrice, before you go to the packaging of your products, I want to know, well, I mean, I know, but I want our listeners to know more about your product and how you created it in your kitchen and how you brought it from your kitchen to over 900 stores in, is it 3 markets now? Asia, Canada, and the US?
Yes. Yeah, we're in Hong Kong and just launching into the US. So yeah, I can tell that real quick. So as you know, my background is, journalism. I can know how to do research. I had a baby. Baby developed eczema at 8 months. And this, it was so bad. She was scratching till she was bleeding onto her little crib sheets. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor's option was steroids. I had seen news stories. I knew that they weren't necessarily the best option at this point for her. And so I thought, I'm going to go and research and find a better solution. So I looked at the existing medical research, and then I started looking at different universities and what kind of academic studies had come out. Of course, I looked into traditional medicines. And then I bought a crock pot used off of Facebook for $15 and got some materials and started experimenting. And when I came up with, what we have today, it cleared Esme's eczema up in 2 days. So then I had a whole crock pot left over. And so I thought, well, I better just share this with people. And so I just put the call out again to mom and babies, anybody need this? And I had to make 3 more crock pots right away because everybody needed it because it's a huge problem. And it wasn't really until a year later that I thought I could start making a business out of it, because I had seen somebody else who had a business that was not just about making money. It wasn't just about the profit. It was about what you were trying to do in the world. Because for me, the perception of business has always been very negative. It's always been about extracting value from everyone in order to make yourself wealthy. And when I saw that business could be an extension of my values and that it could be a way to have great social change, then I was like, okay, I can do a business. So I started it and did a farmer's market, which is amazing. Farmer's markets are fantastic with anybody doing consumer goods, to really get a good idea of what customers want. And then, I went to my local store, baby store, and asked her to carry my product, and she said no because she already had so many products. And then I got her to try it, and then it cleared her problem up. She had a rash under her ring finger in a day, and she said, I'll carry it. And then she spoke to people, and it went on and on and on until Whole Foods got interested. And I said, okay, but I've got to stop making this in my crock pot and find a lab that can make this in big vats. And yeah, I got a distributor, and we went from the 70 stores that I was in the Lower Mainland in Vancouver up to 400 stores in 2 months. And like I said, now we're more than double that in Canada. So we're about, that's the quick story of Satya.
That's amazing.
Right? And your packaging is sustainable. You source your packaging to be sustainable.
Yes. So we have glass jars. We have tins that we use. We actually have also a stick that we have, which is great. It's actually the best way to apply it. And although it is actually made with plastic, we got really good heavy-duty plastic that can be refilled. So the sticks are refillable. We have refill pouches that are made of compostable material. So you empty them and compost the refill and just keep reusing the stick. We also have a stainless steel container that can be used. So, we just try to think of every aspect of the business and how we can do better. And it's always evolving too. It's never oh, we're done. It's always how can we do better? What's the next step to do? And yes, I think the whole process has a lot to do with, being Indigenous and being connected to community, which is essential when you're in business. In any type of business. But I also, I think the overarching philosophy for me is just don't be an asshole. Just always try to do better, do good. Don't be an asshole. What's the decision? It's easy to make.
Satya Organic Skincare. Don't be an asshole. I think we have a new marketing strategy for you.
I've heard of people putting it there, though.
I don't know if I want to hear that story on Auntie Up today, but maybe one day.
I have a lot of overshare on my customers, but yeah.
We're not supposed to pull any punches, so let's hear this. No, just kidding. We won't hear
I
it.
love it because what I hear from like both of you ladies is that, you know, I really feel like I'm hearing a strong connection to like to our Indigenous roots and to like our values. And I mean, using materials naturally sourced and sustainable, like Sage, you mentioned it at first, you know, because you didn't have a lot of material to make your designs and stuff. But I really see you turning to those natural products and in your designs regardless. So can you tell me a little bit about, you know, your choices to be sustainable in your designs?
I think it just naturally happened. I feel like sustainable materials, natural materials are just far superior. They're gorgeous. You know, you get a smoked hide that, you know, a friend has tanned. Like nothing compares to it. It's gorgeous material. I'm really interested in like the way that my auntie makes materials too, and I want to be a part of that. I love I love family time. I love, you know, sitting with my sister and working with those kinds of materials, and it's just something that is so specific to our families. I just feel like it's so special compared to mainstream fashion. And I mean, and it's sustainable. You know, we're not mass hunting animals. We're not mass producing fibers. It is all sustainable. And it's based on those values of only taking what we need. Like, we really don't need more than, you know, we don't have to be the hugely wealthy people. We just need enough to be able to live a good quality of life. We deserve a good quality of life. And I think, like, if that's what our goal is, then all of us will have that. So not only we'll be using materials that are sustainable for the land, but I think it'll also create sustainability in our communities. Stability. You know, we really deserve to have stability, and I feel like it's been a very long time not having stability.
Mm-hmm. And we are the natural stewards of this land, so it just all ties in, right? It's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Sage, can you describe one of your favorite pieces for us?
Yeah, oh my gosh. I just did this beautiful dress for Danis Goulet. I made it of silk.
Danis Goulet, the director of Night Raiders.
Night Raiders. Yeah. She asked me really quick. It was like 2 weeks, and I had making clothes is really hard. Like, so if someone had it's not hard. It takes a lot of time, and you know, people talk about, you know, whipping something up in a day, but that's a pattern that you've prototyped, you've tried it on someone, you've tried different materials, you've changed the pattern around, and then once you get your great pattern, then you can start recreating it for many people. But like Danis had asked me only, you know, a couple of weeks before, but man, she's been, I've known her since I was 18, so it was such an honor to get to make something for someone who I respect so deeply, who has had such a positive impact on my life, who has been a role model to me. And I made this beautiful silk piece that fell over, there was a shawl that was attached to the top of the dress, and I based the pattern on, traditional regalia, actually, because it's a nice, the way it falls is it's really beautiful square shape, so the shawl fringe just falls beautifully. You know, we use silk ribbons for it too, and those, when I get to make things for people that I love, that's what I love the most. I mean, I also I made a really cool rawhide bustier that's just fun. I mean, rawhide it's like what you use on a drum, right? So I casted it around me, and it was all wet and slimy because it's rawhide skin. I'm just stitching it up, and I just have to tie it on really tight to dry it like that. And so I just love getting to use materials that's so different than any other material I get to use. So it's just it's just cool. It's fun.
It's amazing.
Patrice, what's your favorite part about being in business for yourself? I know you have to run because you're extremely busy, but
I pushed off my next meeting another 10 minutes, Kim. So I got another 10 minutes.
All right.
What is my favorite part of running my own business? It's the connections that I'm able to have with people. I mean, I got into journalism because I wanted to make change in the world. I saw that as a good way to make the world a better place. And now I'm able to help people individually, one-on-one. You know, I can help their children, their grandparents. I can help them, and it makes a big difference in people's lives to feel comfortable and not self-conscious and not in pain and not scratching and, and just, it makes me feel wonderful. And also the fact that when you're in business and you are able to build community with other business owners, that's great community to be in as well, because you really need that in order to be successful, because it's a very lonely path. So, yeah.
Sage, I saw you nodding there.
It can feel very lonely sometimes when you're trying to build something up, especially in the middle of a pandemic. And it can be daunting to make a lot of big decisions on your own. When you're about to send on an email, is it ready? Okay, read it again, make sure it's okay. There's always just questioning. Is it okay? Is it all right? Is it okay? And I was working as a collective, an artist collective for Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto, and we decided to incorporate, because there is a lot in business that is led by a person, or it's a co-op or a sole proprietorship or a corporation. But I want Indigenous Fashion Week to live if my niece, who is right now 3, in 10 years, 15 years, she decides she wants to go into fashion, I want her to feel like there's a landing pad when she's done all of her education, or if she chooses not to do education. And, if I'm not there in 10 to 15 years, I want to make sure that spirit of the work that we're doing continues to live on.
Sage, done is better than perfect. That is something that I always have to remind myself. Done is better than perfect.
Oh man, it's so scary. And then looking back at the mistakes and you're like, I could have done this. It's constantly just a questioning of I could have done that better. I could have done that better. I could have done that better. And then working on the next project and remembering what didn't work and applying it to the next project, because man, there are so many mistakes.
But it's never black or white. It's never right or wrong. It's what you're bringing to the table. It's who you are, right? That is the right thing to put out there in the world.
Yeah, definitely. And learning, that's the best thing. I mean, it's not a bad thing to fail. That's the thing, is you learn so much from making mistakes and seeing how it could be, how it could be different for the next time.
I'm feeling very quippy. I have this if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. I have all these little sayings, right? If you got to fail, you have to fail.
Do you put little Post-its all around your computer? And
I put stickies on my forehead.
Okay, I actually got this new app. I can't even remember what it's called, but it sends me little messages throughout the day. Things one's for anti-anxiety and one's also for making decisions, and just it's my little cheerleader on my phone once an hour. So whatever's happening that day, it doesn't matter. I'll just get these little messages to myself, and
that's
those
awesome.
little things keep
I need
going.
that app.
Yeah, right.
let me look on my phone. It's in the health section.
We all need that app.
It's called I Am. And it's
okay.
and it'll say I am smart enough to be successful, and just little simple things like that. They really those kind of things go a long way.
Yeah,
I love
especially especially in a pandemic, right? When a lot of us are working from home and we're working solo, and when you're in the office and you're around a lot of people or you travel for work, you're there to hold one another up and to have those face-to-face conversations where you can tell people, you can pop into somebody's office, or if you're at a conference or something, there's all those connections happening and people are there to help, lift you up and raise you up. And if you're at home by yourself, then once an hour getting a message like that saying, you are enough, you are the best. Blah, blah, blah.
I think it's everything you guys are just talking about, running your own businesses, the highs, the lows, the challenges. I feel like that's exactly where Auntie Up came from, right? We wanted to do this podcast on our own for us, because sometimes we've been excluded as Indigenous women. So it's just so great to hear everything that you guys are saying. And I'm so honored that you guys were our guests here on Auntie Up, the podcast. Perfect guests.
Yeah. Before we go, Jolene, I'm just gonna nudge you back towards the script at the end.
I'm sorry. Yes. The other question that I wanted to ask you, which was leading up to this, I'm sorry, because we are talking about businesses. What do you say to women that are maybe like on the fence, that have this idea to start their own business, but maybe are a little scared because, like you said, you're overthinking everything. You've maybe had those microaggressions of racism. What do you say to those women?
When I was still working a full-time job when I was really like shifting from I've always worked in the Indigenous arts community in Toronto, but I was really shifting towards fashion. But I was still working these jobs because I was afraid. Like I was just afraid to not have a full-time job and not have money. And it was actually my husband Cliff Cardinal was like, I was leaving work one day and he's like, you should just do it. We're going to invest in you. And like there was something so powerful about someone saying, we're going to invest in you. And I'd be like, yeah, I have to invest in myself. I'm going to make it work. Like you were saying, Patrice, is like, you just get it done. Like women are super resilient and we like nothing goes unnoticed. So like, paying rent was just like, I hustled. I still hustle to do that kind of stuff. But it's like, invest in yourself.
Yeah.
You deserve it.
Yeah, because like women don't get into business to make money, make quick money, right? We get into business to solve problems generally, and if you're on the fence, I just say do it because you have no idea the skill set that you will develop and discover as you're on this journey. There is no such thing as security in this world. You think that having a job that somebody else can fire you at is security? It's not. It's not any more secure than running your own business. It's just a different type of panic, really. So just go out there and, do whatever you need to do to be comfortable, but you will never regret doing it. Never. You might regret not doing it, but you'll never regret being becoming an entrepreneur. And we need you. We need people with your values and your skills and the exact unique person that you are to come and create a great business because there's a lot of crappy ones out there.
It's so great to see, it's like an Indigenous economy, all of our nations starting small businesses and we're supporting each other. And it really makes that mainstream commercial capitalist world feel like it's not as daunting. If we're supporting each other, our work is going to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, we sit here, Jolene and I in our home studios and wonder if we are doing the right thing. But then we get to talk with ladies like you and be inspired to not be afraid to, take those next steps. And, I think we weren't sure how this podcast was going to come over, but we have over 600 followers on Twitter already on our first week. And I know we're recording our third episode. So by who knows how many we'll have by the time this hits the air. And that's because we have our community here holding us up, just like the business community is supporting both you, Patrice, and Sage.
I've got one more quippy saying for you, which is a lot of times we say to ourselves, why me? Who am I to be in this position? Who am I to do this? And it's why not you? Why should it be somebody else? Right? It's not why me, it's why not you.
Well, if you don't do it, maybe it'll never exist, right? It's sometimes making decisions. I'm should I? But then where is it going to be in the world? You feel that really strong desire where this has to exist in our world with us together.
So even though you're both very successful, you still have those moments of self-doubt, but you get over them with
Constantly.
Your app and your yellow stickies.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's been plenty of times I've been on the floor crying, feeling I just can't get up and keep going. It just comes with the territory, right?
It totally does. It's nothing to fear. It's not easy, but we get through things. And I feel like us, Native women, have been through a lot of really hard things. It's only business. It's not life and death.
Right? It's not brain surgery. Nobody's going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have been through a lot and we continue to go through a lot. But one of the things that also happens as we go through this stuff is that we're in it together. You know, it's like if one of us succeeds, we all do, because we support, love, and uplift each other, right? Like I said, I'm before we were recording, I told you I was wearing the earrings and the bracelet that I got from Indigenous Fashion Week from Indigenous designers. So this is Sherry Chapman from my community, Fort William First Nation, and this is Audrey DeRoy, and both of them are like just amazing artists. And Helen Pelche was at Indigenous Fashion Week, and she took the jump. She did it. She said, I'm going to take your advice and I'm starting my own business. And now she's making birch bark baskets and jewelry holders and earrings. And so she's got something for someone, like there's always something for any price range for what's affordable to you. And she's doing it all off the land in her home office, right? Just like me and Kim are coming to you from our home studios. And so it's great that we support and encourage each other to do this and inspire each other. And I feel so inspired after talking to you two ladies today.
Yeah. And remember what Patrice said, like, don't undersell yourself. Charge for your time, charge for your knowledge, that you're worth it. You are worth it. We're all worth it.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Woo-hoo.
All right. Well, I know you have to run, Patrice, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and away from your company to spend with us here on Auntie Up.
My pleasure. It's awesome to be able to do this. This is being in community right here. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Tag us when you get to over 1,000 stores. Do a post on social media and say, Aunties, I'm over 1,000 stores.
Okay, will do.
We'll be cheering for you.
Oh, thank you guys so much. It feels so good to be with people. Aunties.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess that's it. We've come to another end of another episode of Auntie Up, Cultivating the Business Landscape. Patrice Mousseau and Sage Paul are obviously really changing it. We've learned so much today. I hope you guys have learned a lot too out there. Chi Miigwech, Sage and Patrice.
And I'm also so honored that you guys took the time to talk to us today, Chi Miigwech, and I'm going to promo our next episode on Auntie Up. It's going to be guest hosts Christine Genier and Stephanie Moses. They'll be your guest hosts, and they're going to be talking about the importance of language reclamation. So remember to follow and like us on all your socials and subscribe where you get your podcasts, because we're going to be dropping a new episode every single Monday. So come have tea with your aunties and start your week off right.
Auntie Up is produced by Jolene Banning, Kim Wheeler, and Sam Makwa for Makwa Creative. Our executive producer is Tanya Talaga. Our partner is Antica Productions. Auntie Up is sponsored by No History and Anna Mickey, Indigenous innovation since 2003. Follow and like us on socials at Auntie Up Podcast on Facebook, Auntie.up on Instagram, and Auntie Up 1 on Twitter.